Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel. If you're new here and you want more maths content, then please consider subscribing. If you learned something, then hit that like button. I hope you enjoy my video. Question 1. Solve using the quadratic formula. So we know the quadratic formula is minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So in this case, we're going to have x equals negative b. So we have our a is 1, we have b is 4, and c is minus 1. So we're going to have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 lots of 1. Now, in the calculator, it's important that, because you get a mark for this a lot of the time, that you type in what's inside the square root first. So you'd have, just type the whole thing in. So we have 16 plus 4, so we'd have root 20. So 4 plus or minus root of 20 all over 2. And then you could type that all in the calculator. So the negative version. So we have minus 2 plus or minus root 5. So we have minus 2 plus or minus root 5. Part B. So here we've got a equals 1, b equals plus 10, and c equals 5. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Then again, in the calculator, we're just going to type in what's inside this root. 10 squared is 100. Then we have 100 minus 20, so 80 all over 2. So in our calculator, we've got, so we're going to have minus 5 plus or minus 2 root 5. Part C. So here we have a equals 3 now, b equals minus 8, c equals 2. So x equals minus b, so that will become plus 8. B squared. So now you have to make sure you use a bracket. Yeah, so minus 8 all squared minus 4 a c all over 2a. Okay, now typing what's inside the square root first, we get 40. So we've got 8 plus or minus root 40 all over 6. And we just type that whole thing in. So we're going to have 4 plus or minus root 10 over 3. So 4 plus or minus root 10 over 3. By completing the square, solve. So in this case, we half the middle term. So we have x plus half the middle number 2 squared. Then we always subtract this number squared. 2 squared is 4. And then the c term just comes down. So minus 1 equals 0. So we have x plus 2 squared minus 4 minus 1 is minus 5. And now we just rearrange. So we have x plus 2 squared. The minus 5 goes to the other side. So 5. We square root both sides. Yeah, we square root to cancel out this squared. So we have x plus 2 equals the square root of 5. So remember your plus or minus. Then you move the 2 over. So we get minus 2 plus or minus root 5. Solve by completing the square. So with solving, when it equals 0, we don't have to factorize. So what we usually do is when there's a coefficient of x squared, we factorize out the 2 here. Instead, we can divide everything by 2 because it's an equation rather than an expression. So when it doesn't equal 0, you need to factorize out 2. But when it does equal 0, you can divide by 2. So we get x squared. So we do x plus half the middle term 3 squared, subtract this number squared, which is 9, plus 13 over 2 equals 0. Now, I would advise that we practice doing this without the calculator. So all we need to do is say 9 is 9 over 1. So if we times top and bottom by 2 to find the equivalent fraction, we would have 18 over 2. So we're left with x plus 3 squared. Then we have minus 18 plus 13, which is minus 5 over 2 equals 0. Move the 5 over 2 over. Then we root both sides, and then we subtract 3. So we have minus 3 plus or minus root 5 over 2. Then we could just type that in the calculator. So seeing what it says, minus 3. And we could just say plus, and then we'll do the negative will just be the same thing. 5 over 2. Now it depends on the answer. So we could say any of these two. So minus 6 plus or minus root 10 over 2. Final question, and a really interesting question. It would be regarded as quite a tough one. So it says the perimeter of the rectangle is 25. Find the possible values of x to 3SF. We need the lengths of this rectangle. If this is x, then the other side is x. The problem is we don't know the longer lengths of the rectangle. Well, it is a right angled triangle if we cut it in half, which we have, and we have this 10 centimeters. So if I was to call this length y, for example, we would say y squared plus x squared equals 10 squared. So move the x squared over, and then that means the length of y is root of all this. So the perimeter of all this is x plus y plus the other y on the other side. So on the top right, so we have 2x plus 2y. Now we know what y is now. We have this. And now the question comes, how do we solve this? It looks horrible, right? This is a past GCSE question. And it was 7 marks. Yeah, it's huge. The problem is that we have this square root. If it was 2 bracket, we just expand everything and solve. What we need to do is we need to move the 2x to the other side. Then what we do is we square both sides to get rid of this root. So I'm going to change color here. So I'm going to put a square bracket here. Square both sides. Because now when we have 2 root 100 minus x squared and we square it, we have to square this 2, which becomes 4. And then this squared cancels out the square root, and it becomes 100 minus x squared. Equals, then we have this 25 minus 2x, which we're going to have to expand. So I'm going to write it out twice. So expanding, we have 400 minus 4x squared equals, so we have 25 times 25, which is 625. Subtract. 25 times 2 is 50. Then here we have minus another 50, which will be minus 100x, plus, then 2x times 2x is 4x squared. We now move the smaller x squared, so this minus 4x squared, over to the positive one. So anything on this left side, we're going to move over to the right side. And now we solve that. Now the best way to solve this is the quadratic formula. A is a, b is minus 100, c is 225. So x is negative b, which will become plus 100, plus or minus root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. Now remember, in our calculator, we must type in the root bit first. So we have 2800 there. So we've got 100 plus or minus root 2800 all over 2 times 8 is 16. So now we could type it all in. And they want it to 3SF, so 9.56. Yeah, so the 3 most important numbers. We've got 9.56. And then changing it to minus. we have 2.94. And these are our two solutions to this quite a difficult problem.